cycling a 1,000-pound recumbent etrike micro RV. How you can get lost in suboptimal technique, mind robbing, body robbing, suboptimal technique for 8 years. Maybe I know now. And it's been a wonderful 8 years. It has sharpened my mind. It has driven it crazy, but it has certainly sharpened it. There are 1,000 ways that the problem can be solved suboptimally, which means not solved at all. But it seemed better than the last horror story shitstorm until 2 days later it doesn't work. To reveal that, I'll discuss what seems to be the more optimal solution. The more optimal solution is to not be seduced away from the posture, mechanics, and reality of a conventional upright racing bike like I grew up on. And this revelation began yesterday. So, James, all of this profound instability, you feel like you're trying to pedal and your seat is an ice cube floating in water, or a beach ball floating in water, and the pedals are beach balls that you're trying to submerge in water. Think about how unstable that is. Every move is a new horror. Every one. It's not possible to cycle because nothing is consistent, ever. James, is it like that on a conventional racing bicycle? It's not. Maybe a little bit if you're on cobblestones, but still. Okay, so think about what your legs are in relationship to on a conventional bicycle. Well, they're in relationship to the pelvis, which is resting on a crippling, dangerous, hard leather seat. What else, James? Well, the vector created by the force exerted by the legs on the pedal, well, no, first. Okay, relative to that, James, where is the crack mechanism? Is it up by your chest, conceptually, experientially, like it has been for 8 years? Well, no. The knees in a racing crouch feel like they're up by the chest, but no. The cycling mechanism is down below the perineum. Really? Okay. So maybe you got to try and see if you can adjust your posture so that that happens. And yes, it's possible. Yes, I'm doing it right now, 20 hours later. And it's doable. And I think it's sustainable. And it might be something I can repeat more than 3 days in a row. And I suspect I can. And that grew into an understanding, well, so James, what are you exerting against? What are your legs exerting against? In a conventional racing bicycle crouch. And the answer evolved. Well, not... Oh, let's see. Did I finish the earlier thought? The vector, the force of the legs is slightly sliding, is a vector that slightly slides the perineum resting on that cripplingly hard leather bicycle seat backward. Well, James, you've been fighting sliding forward for 8 years. It's driven you mad. So maybe you can adjust your posture so that that vector is restored. Oh, yeah, I can. I am. I'm doing it right now. And why this is 80% more stable than the ice cube or floating beach ball analogy a moment ago, I don't know, but it is probably 90% more stable. I am not spending most of my time trying to stay stable on those 3 beach balls in the water, in waves. The waves are still there. The cobblestones are almost always there in a tricycle. Late yesterday afternoon, another piece of the puzzle re-emerged, because it has emerged at times, but without the posture right, with the instability so extreme, the importance of the following could not be grasped and understood. It was rounding error in a floating sea of beach balls. But it's not rounding error anymore. It is easy in an e-bike to set the power such that the crank area becomes unintelligible by the body. It just doesn't make any sense. How am I moving my legs, the body says, and you have the power set that there is no resistance at the end. It doesn't really matter what we do at the end, the outward stroke, the further extension, even if modest, of the toes. It's accelerating away from us. That's not cycling. That's not pedaling. Well, we're going to try and maintain contact out there. We're going to try and make it meaningful with all sorts of thrusts and juts and overextensions. And in the process, this isn't cycling. I don't know what it is, and I'm going to try and make the best of it. But this isn't cycling. I'm not turning a crank in a way that causes us to move. No. This is bullshit. I'm going to try anyway, but this is bullshit. By the way, honestly, it's coming to my mind. This is life in this new Trumpsy Christian fascist Fourth Reich without the example and teachings of the ultimate, the only really true revolutionary in history, the man Jesus, whose teachings and example are right there in the four Gospels defined. Jesianity, I call it. Jesus' way. Nothing makes any fucking sense. It's not the real world. But with this in mind, guess who controls the throttle? James. James, do you feel what's going on in the toes? Do you feel that because of the throttle setting, there's no back pressure for the toes as they reach full extension? Stop it, James. Adjust the throttle it back a little bit so that you don't rob them of that back pressure and drive them insane. And or you're in a real world relationship with a crank now, James. Don't push it so hard. Reduce the force. Up to a point, that's another way of maintaining that back pressure. As we're coming over a rise right now as I'm talking, I'm doing that. Isn't that fascinating? 127, 131, 136 human watts per hour. That's good input for us. And what I was about to say is, I'm throttling back to nothingness. Oh, that's funny. So this might be, I know it's mentally dramatically less draining, and I think it may be much more physically productive. Oh, and I forgot, got interrupted in that earlier part. So, a big gateway yesterday, big breakthrough was, well, the vector of the legs is pushing, is a vector that the perineum experiences as sliding it backward. That was huge. Much later yesterday and this morning came, well, okay, James, conventional racing bike. What are your legs exerting against? There's no back on a conventional racing bike. Well, yeah, there's the body weight. Is that really what it's exerting? The legs are exerting against to turn that crank, James. Well, what they feel like they're exerting against, as I remember 50 years ago, is the pelvis, which to achieve the vector, to achieve that the pelvic area feels like the crank area is not up by the chest, but is directly out from it, requires the pelvis to feel like it is tilting forward, as it is right now, using my stomach muscles. It might be that I could adjust the seat back so that it kept that forward tilt. I may do that, I may not. I'll probably experiment with it. But right now, it's my stomach muscles primarily, but also the positioning of the weight of my torso and the shape of my torso and the lumbar curve, all of which, thanks to gravity, helps support that forward tilt of the pelvis. So in a conventional bike, what the legs feel like they're able to work from is that forward tilted pelvis. Oh, yeah. And it's stable and it's strong. We're at 204 human watts right now. Coming up a little grade. Yeah, maybe a grave. A little grade. That's huge for us. And I hardly noticed because the muscles, the strong muscles of the hamstrings, I think, and the buttocks are finally in a position not unlike they are on a conventional bicycle. And I've been trying to get there for 8 years. I can't seem to complete the thought in this video log regarding the pelvis, my newfound relationship with the pelvis. I have much to learn about it. But whereas when this string of epiphanies began yesterday afternoon with the new line of thinking regarding conventional racing bicycle mechanics and posture, the pelvis tilted forward as it feels like it is on a conventional racing bicycle, so that the vector of the force of the legs feels like it is sliding that area back ever so slightly. There's something, when it started yesterday, it was, okay, so the vector needs to be against the perineum. And I don't think that's correct. The vector needs to be working with the top of the pelvis. And there must be something about the way the tendons and the muscles are that they like that. And a uniting thought, why, James? Why is this working? And I think the answer must be, in part, you aren't designed to have a cycling experience when the body mechanics do not include these elements. You can't let the toes feel like they become meaningless at the end. They have to be at an equilibrium in terms of their force and back pressure. Light, heavy, they can't experience a vacuum, or the body doesn't know what it's supposed to do. We aren't adapted for that. I think it's epigenetic. No, we're not designed to cycle, but we are designed, when moving ourselves, to feel back pressure all the way to the end of the exertion in that area between the toes, whether we're walking or running or cycling. And if we lose that by too much throttle, and there's no back pressure there, the legs say, I am not adapted for that. I don't know what to do. I'm going to try, but I'm going to flail. For 8 years, I'm going to flail unless I figure this out. Still don't know that I've gotten to the point. Well, yes, I did. So, All of this leads to what I think happens naturally on a conventional bicycle. The legs are pulling squarely. They're in square relationship to the pelvis and to the direction of force over and through the back pressure all the way to their full extension they want to reach in pushing the crank area over the top. The relationship, the pelvis, the perineum must feel that there is a vector pushing it backward on the conventional racing bike seat. But the relationship of exertion from the legs is to the top of the pelvis. This is just freaking wonderful.